Hey, what's up guys, it's Oakley, and we're doing a Rome 2 battle, Macedon against Rome. I have the battle pause here because it's going to get off to a quick start. Yes, this battle, I'm playing the Macedonians. The reason for doing so is because I've been getting back into Arrian's book, The Campaigns of Alexander. So I have the Landmark edition, which has tons and tons of side notes to it that give you a lot more in-depth description. It has all types of additional material to give you the context, and then Arrian's campaigns are just so detailed. Really love it. The diagrams of the book are great, so it made me want to play a bit of Macedonians. So typically spears and pikes are not that good, especially with Rome that can outmaneuver you and take you to town with the infantry. But I figured I'd take take a hand at it. So we have 6 of the just basic pikemen along the front, and then what I have is slingers, just the cheapest version of the slingers on the right flank. Down through the center, I have 3 of these mercenary Thracian warriors. The Thracian warriors are an important part of this build because obviously the pikes can hold out and they're good for defense, but you need something for the offense. So that is going to be my Thracian warriors here with the Rumphia. Alexander, historically, and Philip had to deal with the Thracian warriors. Alexander himself venturing up north to Thrace before doing his campaigns, having to subdue the area and bring back some warriors with him. Then in the back I have 2 of these levy pikemen. These are going to be the cheapest of the pikes, and they're just here to kind of do some rear guard action if need be. I have my citizen cav, one on the left, one on the right, but then I also have another contingent over here. The Aspis companion calves, obviously had to bring some of those guys with me. They are looking super beautiful, really epic units. One of the reasons why I also wanted to play as Macedon. The cavalry is so cool. And then I have my general here, who's in a picked shield bearer unit. And then over here is where I put my elite slingers, Rhodian slingers. I decided to put them on Overwatch. I wanted them to kind of be hidden out of sight. As you can see them here, they're all hidden. I was going to roll up with my pike formation on the left, and then kind of surprise my opponent with some shots from my slingers. However, what I didn't expect was a very aggressive Roman push, so that's going to be coming up on the right flank. My slingers are pushing forward. I know that this is going to be a threat, so I'm pulling forward with my shield bearers, trying to protect me. And then you can see in the distance my cavalry is actually going to be coming, anticipating that I need to block these guys. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on slow motion real quick. Roman force is moving forward, but the cavalry is just getting completely into this action. This is not what I was expecting. Usually cavalry like this is, cavalry on one wing wants to go ahead and harass, get the enemy skirmishers and all that, but you never really want to commit your cavalry like this in a position where it's all by itself. So I was expecting my opponent to, take one look at my units and pull away, but no, he decides to all out, and you can see this all out charge against my guys. So not actually what I was expecting, and so he's actually going to get the drop on me. Some of his units going to be getting past my front lines, bowling over my troops. My companions, Aspis, are holding strong on this side. My shield bearers in the center are holding strong, but with all the Roman cavalry pouring into the midst, it was actually overwhelming for me. My citizen cav is actually going to make it into the battle. You can see them coming in through the back, but like I was telling you, they were not prepared. And that's one of the things that, I can't remember who said it, or it's just a common phrase, but actually who give professionals actually in sports or strategy games or whatever have actually some of the hardest times when they're going against non-professionals. You think, a professional against a professional is going to be the most intense of matches, but actually it's not that much, because when you're fighting against someone who's also professional or who knows what they're doing, then they will do kind of predictable moves. And that's the trap I fell in this engagement. I expected the Roman player not to commit to the fight because it was not advantageous. However, the Roman player, you'll notice, is not the greatest player, and so he did what I would not have done. And so that unpredictability of playing against someone who's maybe not so good actually ended up being far more damaging to myself. So that was perhaps due to my arrogance, and that's something you have to learn to avoid in all walks of life. But the Roman cavalry is going to be pulling away. Like I said, I knew I would eventually win this engagement, but I took way too many losses for that engagement where I could have had a much cleaner battle. So the Roman force has disengaged. I'm chasing the way with my citizen cav, but he routed a fair amount of Rhodian slingers. Romans are still rather healthy here. However, this is some pretty expensive cav, so for them to be thrown away at this point is not going to be good for my opponent. My citizen cav is in tow. They've got a good amount of kills, and here come the rest of my troops. I'm bringing the rest of my troops, levy pikemen, to try and ward these guys off, and now we can get some epic shots here of the dunes of these waves of cavalry horsemen just running around here. And this is where I wish I'd had you know, some additional step lancers or some oh, here come my guys in the back. But yeah, this is where I wish, had I been Alexander, I would have perhaps recruited some nice step troops to reinforce my units and just tear these Romans apart in the open ground. But for the time being, I'm going to be left with citizen cav, which are obviously not that great of units. So one of them charged into the center to pin them. I'm trying to pull my other citizen cav unit to the flank, or at least I was trying to, but they get caught. So I'm like, alright, we're just going to commit them to the fight. And I was trying to get them around the flank to get a better charge bonus. And over in the rear, you can see my levy pikemen moving into position. Pikes not quite deployed, but they're going to be trying to get this full surround on this Roman cavalry as it tries to now pull away. And God, the graphics on this game are freaking beautiful. So my guys are in position, and now is where I'm going to start to be able to drop the spears. The rest of my troops are going to be pulling back to the hill. I want to make sure that I hold that position. So now we're moving forward. The cavalry engagement is still undecided. Some of my enemy, or no, looks like citizen cav are still in the mix. I thought they would have died, but the Romans are going to start routing now that I've got my troops in the mix. They're just going to be fighting in here, and now they're going to drop their pikes now they've got them well committed. And this is where you're going to start seeing a lot of kills. Then I give my troops a movement order, and that's what you want to do to keep your pikes moving, otherwise they're going to glitch out and kind of stand stationary. My aspis, you can see in front of me, actually throwing their javelins, so they're going to be secure with the pikes at their rear, and we're going to clean up these Roman forces. So, like I said, from the get-go, I knew I would win this engagement. You can see I came out, I only had one aspis companion force, he only lost 6 men, citizen cav, you losing only 21. So I beat that assault back with only 3 cavalry units compared to my opponent's 4 or 5. So yeah, he definitely came out under in that engagement, but still it was pretty punishing. I mean, look at what's left of my 4 Rhodian slingers, all of them down to almost nothing. So that was a, you know, could have gone a lot better for me. But yeah, I definitely got served in that one. So if my opponent can capitalize on this, we'll see. However, I have retained the high ground, which is what I was hoping to do with the, my Rhodian slingers in this position anyways. And now he's been stripped of his cavalry completely. All that's left is his general bodyguard. So he's going to try and charge back up the hill with velites, which is probably a good idea. He's got a lot of them. They're relatively cheap. They got some armor and shielding. Or not armor, but they do have shielding. And behind this are going to be some troops forming up in testudo. However, you never know what's behind those heights. So now you can see cavalry charging in, and because now I have the cavalry advantage, I can threaten and force these guys back. So they're gonna charge down here. I'm not really gonna get committed to this fight. I'm just putting enough pressure in here to force these guys back into the testudo. It's actually gonna draw a couple pillar volleys from my opponent. It's gonna peg. Oh wow! Look at all of these slinger shots. So that's all the chaos I'm unleashing on the Romans. So like I was saying, he did nick a couple of my horses. I lost a fair amount of them, about a dozen in that engagement. My cav unit is going to pull back. That is citizen cav, not too worried about them. Aspis companions is where I'm going to need those dudes. More pilla being wasted on my slingers. Now that I have the high ground here, I'm continuing to pour on the fire with my slingers, but the Romans with their heavy shields are going to be able to beat this back. But where the real engagement is going to come is here. I wanted to hold the Romans back, so I charge in with my citizen cav. My slingers are going to start to pull back. However, right at the top, they're going to be shooting down at the Romans. I would not want to be in that position. You can see, oh, yeah, here they go. Another pillar volley. So again, wasted on my troops. And the slinger volleys are starting to do work. And now it seems like here they're going to claim the top. So pretty eager of the Romans to finally crest this hill. They're going to be pretty happy to claim the top. But now that they're on the open plains, they're going to be greeted by shield bearers from the front, pinning them. And then my aspis, having kind of snuck their way behind, are going to be in a perfect position to overwhelm my opponents. I did bring some Thracians here with 36 kills off the charge against the Romans. Ooh, and here comes the aspis charge right into the back. So the Romans, now having been baited to come up the hill, did a lot of early damage with my units with the slingers. And look at all, I don't know if you can see with the resolution on your screen, but you can see all of the slinger stones down here. They're still rolling, and it amazes me that the game is rendering all of this. So crazy. But yeah, so the Roman assault on the hill has been beaten back. For the most part, Thracians in here are going to start to get killed. Romans do much better in prolonged melee. But with the cavalry in close support, I will be able to even this out before too long. Meanwhile, my slingers have reformed over on this front, so holding the hill definitely going to be advantageous. I'm just picking apart at the Romans. They have no extreme range units. In fact, it's all going to be down to Triari and other forces here as the backbone of this force. And surprisingly, my opponent actually brought dogs. I'm not sure why he saved them for this engagement, but this is going to be somewhat suicidal. So the dogs are going to be coming in. You can watch some of this. And they're just going to get absolutely massacred against the pikes. Not sure how you train a dog to run into spears like this, but they're going to be going down easily. And then the dog handlers are going to be charging in. And I'm going to give a general movement order to my pikes to just chew through these guys, push forward. When pikes are given a movement command, they're going to just steamroll everything. This is something you would have seen actually in real life. Pikes moving forward, pushing through formations, and then you would have had units in the back, skirmishers from the Macedonians who would be charged with cleaning up the enemy. So that's what's happening here. So the pike line is moving forward. Some enemy forces are going to try and charge into them. They're going to be held at bay. And over here, actually, I was able to push forward. I'm going to have my Thracian warriors wade through the front of my pikes. So I've held the enemy at bay. And then Thracian warriors going to be cleaning up the Romans once they're pinned. Not getting necessarily the best of charges, but definitely really epic stuff. Some of the pikes pushing forward in the center. And this is where the Romans would have, had they had, triple X Achies and reserves, they could have exploited the gaps here, but they really don't have the reserves they need. My Aspis companions have come down from the top of the hill. Slingers are firing into the flanks. And I'm getting a really, really, really good engagement. So usually you don't see pikes doing too well, but in this type of fight, like I said, my opponent is not necessarily too skilled. So I'm definitely having a field day in this battle. And it's always nice to see the pikes stand up for themselves and kill the Romans. Now, historically, of course, the Romans did fight against phalanx forces, fighting against Macedonians and other Hellenic forces. And for the most part, the Romans could not beat back the pikes in open formations. They're very, very scared to see tons of pikes, and it was only when the pikes could be drawn into open ground that they're actually defeated. There are instances, for instance, of the Romans trying to fight against the pikes, but not really being able to make their way through. The Romans being held at bay by tons and tons of sarissas. There are some anecdotal claims that the Romans tried to hack away at the sarissa tips, although that never really seemed to have worked. There were Roman units where, of course, they had the Roman eagles and the banners that were, big centers of the esprit de corps, pretty much, or signs of honor for the legion. And if you were to lose your eagle, it would be a big deal. So what some of the Romans did, some of the officers, in an attempt to force the Romans to do anything to break through the phalanx force, they would take the Roman eagle and throw it into the phalanx, hoping to incite some of the Romans into a fervor and force them to kind of reclaim the eagle and get into the phalanx, but it didn't really work. So here in the open ground, the phalanx is proving its strength. Although, open ground does have its limitations. You'd imagine the Romans would be smart enough to get around the flanks, which they kind of did, although they sacked a lot of their early troops in trying to take the hill here. And you could see just the chaos that was left in their ways. Tons of Romans being destroyed on the hill. So, cool battle. Hope you guys enjoyed. Sorry that my opponent wasn't that skilled, but I did think it made for a pretty entertaining and pretty epic combat nonetheless. And like I said, it's very hard to pull off a mass pike line, but in this case, my opponent walked right into it. So I was eager to take his loss at that. But yeah, definitely a fun battle. I hope to take the Macedonians in for a couple more battles, and I really wish that we would be able to port in a Macedonian army into Total War Warhammer. I would love to see a pike army go up against something like the Greenskins, or see how that would go down. Some really cool stuff that I would love to see. Hopefully, if the mod team can get to it, or maybe even if Estalia and Talea, I believe some of them have pike forces. It'd be really cool to see. Anyways, let's end the replay now. Take a look at some of the stats at the end. So definitely, I got a lot of kills, brought more forces than my opponent. He sacrificed his 4 best units here in that early engagement. Got 128 kills on Sucky Equites Extraordinari. But that was really on just some of my slingers, and even though my slingers took a lot of damage, they nonetheless racked up a lot of kills. So the early damage that he inflicted, really not doing too much. I traded Citizen Cav into the mix, and oh wow, Aspis with 233. That's kicking ass. Pikeline doing well, Shield Bears with 160, Thracian Warriors doing really well. So overall, Macedonian force performing up to par, and somehow, I'm not sure, these War Dogs at 40 and 50, I did not expect to see that against Pikewall. Velite is pretty much wasted against my Slingers, and they just got thrown into the meat grinder. So anyways, hope you guys enjoyed. Stay tuned for more. I will see you in the next one. Peace out.